I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz...
Well, hey there, Whovians. Welcome back to AfterBuzz TV for the Doctor Who After Show season finale for season 12.
Over too fast.
Over too or is
Over
it
too
still
fast.
going? It's timeless, if you will. Who are we, though? I'm Zach Wilson. That's Dave, Timeless Child, over there.
Hey, I'm all of the childs. There's a lot of me now, apparently.
And Rachel Goodman's here.
Hey everyone, I'm pretty excited to break this down.
Adrienne Snow, unfortunately, could not join us this week. She's doing awesome stuff out of town, overseas, being all fancy and Scottish. I don't think she's actually becoming Scottish, but
We'll see.
know.
She's in
Who
Scotland
knows?
right now. She
Who
can come
knows?
back and she can be Scottish.
She's on the Outlander panel with us too, and we're joking she is not coming back. She's going through the stones. So
Yeah.
that adds up.
Yeah.
You guys do a lot of time travel. But
yeah.
let's dive into the timeless children, not the timeless child, which we've been wondering about since episode 2 of season 11. But now we have our answer as to who and or whom, I guess, is because it's plural now, are the timeless. I don't understand the difference between those two words.
It's the Doctor. The Doctor is the timeless child.
Which I think we all knew in our hearts.
Surprise!
Was going. The Doctor would be the timeless child. It was just, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Oh boy, guys. I want to get. I'm trying to process and chat. Rachel, you got the chat,
I've
right?
got the chat, yeah.
Chat. Let us know what you think as we dive in through this, because there was so much lore just crammed into this episode, and I want to know what you guys think. But first, before we hear from the chat, I want to know what you two thought. Rachel, why don't you kick us off?
All right, so as we were talking before the show, I think I liked it a little bit more than you guys, just from the sound of it. But maybe. So
I'm gonna hide behind this microphone.
I'm going to start on the positive and say that what I appreciated is that we got more of the Doctor's backstory. I know we already had some, but we got more of it. And on top of that, I do feel like this was one of the few episodes this series that actually showed her arcing, and that the Doctor arcing, I shouldn't say her, the Doctor arcing, and I was here for that, and I appreciated the nod of the previous Doctors as well when she kind of inserted all of her memories into the Matrix.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
Cool.
Dave, counterpoint.
Okay, here's the thing. This is what Zach and I were talking about before. It's for me. We found out this origin, but I felt like it was like the Doctor has always been special, but now we found out she's a little bit more special, and I already thought she was special, or they were special. This new revelation wasn't a revelation for me. It wasn't anything for me. It was just, it made her kind of like, maybe she's technically not a Time Lord, but it wasn't enough to be like, whoa. This was as dramatic as someone's 23andMe coming back and finding out their background from the 23andMe, which could be exciting sometimes. But for me, it just wasn't. It didn't hit me.
That is a fair point. Like I love genealogy. Like my dad is super into it, so we could trace back over 1,000 years into my family's history, and there's some really cool stuff in there. But it doesn't change who I am, except to maybe occasionally use royal ancestry as a move to try to make myself sound more impressive to women. It doesn't. It worked one time, and not really.
The couple of things I did like, though, because I want to be a little bit more positive, too, is I love the design of the Cyber Lords.
Yes!
Those look really cool. I can't wait to see that at a con.
But they didn't call them the Cyber Lords.
Well, we all knew they were the Cyber. They were the Cyber Lords. If someone starts calling them something different than Cyber Lords, I would be very confused. But and also I do like, we are creating these gaps in the Doctor's past a bit more, and that's interesting. I wish they weren't as vague in this episode, because it made it a bit more it wasn't. It felt like it was cheating a little bit, but I do like that there's gaps in the past, and we get to kind of find out more. And I'd like to know more about Dr. Ruth. We have an idea of what that is, but we're not too sure, and we'll talk about that a little bit.
It puts Dr. Ruth and we've got to break down, because let's work through it for us and for the audience who might be struggling right now. Let's break down what we now know about the Doctor through Gallifreyan history. So we were introduced, and this is sort of the issue with this episode, is there was a lot of telling. It was just like a lot of story time with the Master and the Doctor inside the Matrix. But the story we got, it was Tech Tayun was an explorer who was the pre-Timelord race from Gallifrey. The Shibogans is what it looks like. Shibogans. I wrote down. I wanted to say Sheboygans because Sheboygans sounds funny and it sounds like a town on Long Island. But so that was the pre-Time Lord Gallifreyan race, and she was exploring and found this place, the Gateway. A
gateway that kind of has like.
They literally called it the Gateway, in this story, and she found a small child at the foot of the Gateway.
And I assume that the Gateway is a lot like the Gateway we met this time. I don't think it's the exact same one, but it's a lot like the Gateway that that they're dealing with the Cybermen through, where it kind of goes to random spots of the universe, or it's from another place that's not quite there.
Because to clarify on that, it doesn't always go to Gallifrey. So like the human race, in theory, was still hidden somewhere else.
Yeah,
it just could be. It could go to Gallifrey.
And I think that was another gateway. I think they just used it as an example of the gateway. I don't know.
It wasn't the same planet.
I think.
As the Doctor's gateway. So anyway, sorry, Rachel.
No, it's okay. I was just sorry. Go ahead.
Trying to get through this story. Basically, Tech Tayun finds the Doctor as a true child outside the gateway. I think my understanding is that gateway was to another dimension or another universe.
That's how I took it too.
Yeah. So what that implies, so the Doctor wandered into our universe from another universe, another dimension, which sounds very much like the Doctor. Like, ooh, portal, I'm gonna see what happens. Very Doctor.
Yeah. It's just a little strange because it is adding something to the origin, but also isn't. So it's kind of being like if Clark Kent was first somewhere else before Krypton, and then we found out about that.
Well, and then the other question is, if there was a child who walked through this portal, my question is, in this other dimension, do we have other doctors where this child came from who might not call themselves doctors, but they can essentially do the same thing as the Doctor?
Essentially, what we're dealing with there is the Doctor is not truly Gallifreyan. The Doctor is something else.
Yeah.
And the Time Lords used, for lack of Doctor DNA to create. Gallifreyans used Shibogans.
You're almost there. Yeah.
Shibogans used Doctor DNA to turn themselves into Time Lords.
Time Lords. Yeah. So all the Time Lords are using a little bit of the Doctor to create their regenerative abilities, and they capped everyone's regenerative abilities at 12? Is it 12?
They capped it at 12 regeneration, so 13 bodies.
Right. So so the Doctor is the only one who isn't capped because that's the origin of regeneration.
Apparently, so that's their way of we don't have to do the gifting thing that we did with Matt Smith, which apparently we didn't have to do according to this mythos.
Yeah, but the Doctor didn't know that at the time.
Yeah,
so
we don't know. But so I did appreciate that. Essentially, the Doctor was a companion, because they mentioned that Tech Tayun took her on adventures throughout space.
Oh, that's a good point.
The Doctor, it was sort of like a flip and an origin story for why the Doctor believes in having a companion. I really like that little detail.
That's great. And I think that's very smart. What I would love to have seen instead of that, Okay, we had a whole episode where we did a BC story where we're following this dude in the middle of a countryside be found and then like killed and then come back, and we find out that was all just like secretly ingrained code about what really happened to the Doctor in this episode. What I would have loved to have seen instead was basically a companion Doctor story without the Doctor and without a companion we recognize, and then we find out later that was the Doctor going around.
And the
that would have
Doctor
been
was
great.
the companion the whole time.
That would have been
yeah.
amazing. I know this is all backseat driving of writing stuff, but why did we spend so much time with Brendan, whatever his name was, in that one episode, and then we reveal that it's all like fake? But there was also no reason for it. There was nothing that happened. There was no one trying to... I thought it was going to be someone trying to escape some sort of mind prison or something like that. But really, it was just like kind of clues about what happened with the Doctor.
To be honest, I'm not even sure how it totally adds up. Like, they were frying the brain. So, okay, so the Tectayun discovers regeneration, uses the Doctor's abilities to create a new, to create Time Lords.
Yeah.
At some point in this process, as Time Lord Society creates itself, they form the Division?
Something called the Division.
Which we didn't really get into very much.
Yeah.
But our understanding so far, as we were trying to piece together like before we got on the air, is that the Division is the like Black Ops secret society within Time Lord, like Time Lords, that is okay with manipulating and changing time. And the Division means that they did some...
Can I finish this part?
Yeah.
Can I finish this thought? Because I think it's the Division as in a Black Ops society, but I think it also means literally a division of the time of the Doctor, and that's how we created Dr. Ruth. It was an aspect of the Doctor that was taken out, and that made the Doctor a kid again to create Dr. Ruth. And that also means they might have done this several times in order to kind of keep the Doctor a kid again, or to bring the Doctor back to being the timeless child until the Doctor kind of grows up. So who knows how many Dr. Ruths are out there just created from the Doctor.
And that was one point that they mentioned when she met Ruth originally, was that Ruth was doing things that were different from the Doctor that we know. And so I think that it would make...
She used a gun.
Yeah. And it was interesting to me that even... So we get that. And first we get like this idea of the Division where everybody is... It's like a different... It's like a split of the Doctor. But then at the end in the Matrix, we get this idea that even though there is this split, these like beings are still, these like different, almost different consciousnesses are inside of her still. And that she can actually, once she acknowledges them, she can hear them. And so to me, it was just interesting, but also kind of confusing at the same time that she would like, does she now remember all of her backstory, or is it still blocked away? Is it retracted?
And is Dr. Ruth a past regeneration? Because now we've essentially established that Hartnell is not the first Doctor. That's not the origin story. That was the first origin story of the memories that our Doctor has. So is Dr. Ruth a division where that's like we created a clone of the Doctor that's over here doing her thing? Or is Ruth like an older version, which raises even more questions, because how did she get the blue box TARDIS if she's old, if she's timeline past Hartnell? I don't know, man.
A lot of... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, see, what I love, though, is that they did kind of foreshadow this in the sense that Ruth did block her memories off. And so we know that that is a thing that happens, and I'm glad that we kind of got to see this pay off in the end with what we've learned about the origin. I just, I don't want to get too prediction-y right now, but I just
predict away. It's a season finale episode.
I feel like Ruth is a past iteration of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And because that's just the vibe that I'm getting. Even when we first met Ruth, it felt more like Ruth had been in the past than the Doctor.
Yeah. Well, she's not like the past version of the Doctor, as in she's going to become the Doctor. She is split from the Doctor. That's what I got.
Okay,
See, I didn't get that. I got that she was another version and that it had been wiped away.
No, I got that it was literally a division, and that like because the brain blast stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
We didn't see anything in that brain blast that we haven't seen on the show for the last 70 whatever years.
It was old episodes.
So that was all that was Doctor using her memory in order to kind of like overtake the Matrix. But we didn't see any new information, nothing from the Ruth side. We only saw a glimpse of Ruth because it's her memory of Ruth. But we didn't get to see the whole Ruth's whole timeline. And I think that's because Ruth is I think she's a whole separate being. I think she's not going to become the Doctor and is not the future Doctor. I think she's running parallel lives with the Doctor. That's what I assumed from how they talk.
Yeah, and like because in that line, like the theory there is that there's like at least one other, if not countless other Doctors at different points in space and time that are out there like running around. And
a lot of people in the chat think that it's the Doctor
like
whose memory was wiped.
Saul Perez, no, she was a version of the Doctor whose memory was wiped. Bill Swan, the division wiped away the Doctor's memories.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I think too.
So that might actually be true because we also see, I think what the Brandon storyline is trying to do, and people are talking about this in the Brandon storyline, is that actually makes more sense, and it actually makes me feel a little better if she is just like, if there is just one streamline of the Doctor, because I was getting concerned that there's just these branches that are gonna just never end.
They're off there somewhere. They're out in the world somewhere with the Doctor's daughter and Clara.
Yeah. So the thing about the Brandon storyline is, and I think what they're trying to show is, she was never literally Brandon. It's like dream logic, where the story of Brandon is the story of what happened to her, just seen through like this memory of a fictional person. So a lot of people in the chat are talking about whether she was Brandon or not, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think she ever really was Brandon. Brandon's like the dream logic version of her, where you got to see this one character die, come back, and then memory gets wiped at the end, because that's what happened to her all the time. And it's also why Brandon's dad never changes, because Brandon's dad was representing the Time Lord stuff. It's all dream logic stuff of her trying to remember this missing gap of memory from her. So if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so it all starts, especially like, because we're getting into some deep canon stuff, and this is like Chris Chibnall's like entry into like affecting deep Doctor Who lore. But like some of this, like, and the reason I was kind of like leaning towards like the division as this like Doctor specific thing that's like just for the Doctor, because we have had like Time Lord Black Ops stuff before where they're going to manipulate time. Like you had the Celestial Intervention Agency back in classic Who time. We've sort of contradicted stuff like Rassilon, who was supposed to be who invented regeneration technology before this, but this sort of just ignores. It didn't like wipe that away, despite the fact that this episode did a lot to like be like, here's how the Time Lords work and this whole thing. They didn't go into any of that pre-established stuff of Rassilon, or like we have the Matrix, but we didn't get into like there's a lot of stuff that seems to be glossed over.
Well, and my question too is the Master, I'm at a certain point, I just assumed that everything she was seeing was accurate. But is there also a chance that he manipulated what she was seeing?
Right, in the Matrix?
In the Matrix, yeah.
There definitely is. Like that's with the Master. There's always that X factor. This seems like it's so like it's one of those like the truth is worse than any lies he could come up with.
And I think they were trying to get around this could be a lie thing by by showing that the gap in the memory.
Yeah.
Like, because why didn't he just fill in that gap? If he was making this up, why didn't he just fill in his own version of it? So I think they were trying to show that, like, this is actually what happened in the Matrix. But I think that's always an out if they want to ever retcon this, which they could easily do by making it like the Master made it all up.
Yeah.
Lies.
The Master's messing with
So
him.
speaking of the Master, he had his own craziness in this episode, and if we were holding out hope, we were going to get some resolution on how this Master came to be. I think we can say that we're not going to get that information anytime soon. This might be something a novelization tries to take care of or something. But
I was kind of hoping it was going to end with this Doctor becoming Missy. That's
this Master
becoming Missy.
That would have been nice.
I like if we're going to talk about the Master a little bit. I was having a lot of faith in this Master from the previous episodes. I was like hoping, like, I think there's something here. I think this actor could be good, and I think I don't mind like a crazy Master. Let's see where this goes. And I was talking to Zach about this. I was seeing like this vulnerability because this person was acting like a evil person all the time, like overacting as an evil person all the time. And I saw that as maybe a vulnerability to the character, or maybe the character's not really that evil and is just trying to pump this up so we can do it. But I might have just been forgiving not so great acting. That's what I'm kind of thinking now.
I feel the same way as you.
Yeah.
But I still, even in the finale, I did see him as being someone who maybe didn't feel completely comfortable with, I mean, not that he isn't evil, because I got that he was definitely evil, but that he almost didn't feel adequate, and that he felt like he wasn't as good at this
As the
Doctor, or as other, maybe, his other peers even. And so that's where the craziness was really driving him mad.
And this was like this is the thing, is like the thing that I've always loved about the best versions of the Master are the ones where the Master thinks that they're like best for, like, that's what I loved about Missy, like the best friends angle of like, we've been best
Lego
friends
Batman Joker.
forever.
Yeah.
Yes. It was a Batman Joker vibe, but like where it was like I know we're enemies, but like aren't we also like kind of buddies?
Yeah.
It was like super interesting, and it was just fun to watch. But this is just like a Snidely Whiplash, like mustache twirly Master who doesn't care about the Doctor, just wants to like destroy her.
Or there was something at the end that I kind of liked, where he was trying to turn, and this is, I think they brought this up with the Master before, trying to turn the Doctor into him, like trying to make the Doctor as bad as him by making some genocidal choice, like the blowing up things. It kind of reminded me of those heads from the David Sims like Master stuff.
John Sims.
John Sims, sorry. There we go. I'm bad with names. But you know what I'm talking about. You know how those like heads from all the people that she saved and then they all come back, which was devastating, and it really hurt. And I was wondering if that was going to be, I don't know. There was something they were trying to do with her causing this like wiping out all biological life would turn her into the Master just a little bit, because making a genocidal choice. But it didn't quite make it for
But
me.
we've also done that story with the Doctor before. That's the Time War.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing. It's like we've seen the Doctor destroy like the Doctor's literally destroyed Gallifrey before. So it felt like a little bit of a retread there. I also was, to be honest, I'm a little confused why you couldn't just like rip the Time Lords out of that cyber armor, because they're clearly still regenerating. So if you took them out of that armor, wouldn't they just regenerate into Time Lords again? Like they'd be fine.
That's a good point.
That's what I kept
think
thinking
about
is
that.
like if their regeneration energy is still going, it means that there's still Time Lords in there.
Yeah.
So like you kind of just killed them all and they were alive.
Yeah.
Maybe get an EMP
Also,
going.
Do they? I guess they also end at that 12 or 13 regeneration limit.
Yeah,
too.
they're not limitless, but I guess like it's still like a soldier that can die 12 times is better than a soldier that can only die once.
Yeah, that's very true.
But again, like we said it before, but the designs on those Cyberlords refuse to use any official names. That's the name.
by the way, someone in the chat did mention Cyber Masters.
Yeah,
but-
I know that's what they called them because the master need to put his stamp on there. Cyberlords is so much the obvious choice, though. I almost feel like they were like, well, they're called Cyberlords, right? And someone's like, that's too obvious. It's like, but we talked about it last week. You put cyber in front of everything with the Cybermen. You might as well just put them in front of Time Lords.
Yeah. But Cyber Time Lords.
No,
doesn't
but
sound as good as
Cyber Lords is like, ooh. You have cyber controllers, cyber rats.
Anything.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat, Billy Jean Girl says it was funny when Graham couldn't get the Cybermen head off, which reminded me that I'm curious if anyone else felt like this, because Zach and I both turned to each other when we were watching this, because Graham has like a very long, eloquent "Don't you love me? I'm Graham" speech to Yaz, and where it's very much like.
Yeah.
I turned. We both like Zach and I looked at each other and went like,
"Oh no!"
Like we felt like that was Graham being like, "I'm going to die this episode. This is my last speech." So I thought for sure he was going to be the one to grab the bomb.
I thought he was gonna die too, and also I felt like I was even telling you, Zach, about this before the show, that I felt like that whole exchange was just out of place. We didn't have the whole B plot was very. Sorry to say this, boring to me, and I didn't understand that little. I like
the Cybermen and
yeah, and then even it's not that I didn't appreciate that like random conversation between Graham and Yaz, but it just felt like we shouldn't have time for this right now.
Yeah, there was a lot of that in this episode.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like, because they made time for that, I was like, oh no, Graham's gonna die. This is the only reason why this speech is there, because we all know they like each other. It doesn't feel like it's gaining something, so it must be here in this 90-minute episode because Graham's going to die.
I never really got. They didn't play that. They didn't earn that beat, I think, is the problem. Is
Right.
that like we didn't spend enough time with Yaz this season. Like we got a little bit with like her and the police officer. We got some pieces where we started to learn a little bit more about her backstory. But if we're gonna have that moment in your finale, I would love to have seen Yaz struggle more this year. Like we didn't see her struggle.
That's not cool. I don't know. I don't agree with you on that because of the episode of the mental health episode.
With her
Well, that's what I'm saying.
sister.
We saw
Yeah.
like a little bit of it. We saw her struggle with the cop, and like she had this past, but Graham didn't see that.
Right, exactly.
And see, I'm more on your like I agree with you on that too, because yeah, we did get that episode. I felt like it didn't just this whole entire season, and we've been saying this, but the companions in general, we just did not get a lot from them.
No, we didn't.
They could have done more with Yaz, and then we could have seen something between Graham and Yaz where at the end of this series, it would actually make sense for him to sit down with her and say, you know what, you're the strongest person I know. Why is he saying this?
Yeah, I
like
yeah, it
Yaz.
just wasn't earned. It like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like this was I thought there was a lot of great Graham moments this season, especially because he was like maybe the funniest character in the show, and he was able to have a lot of great like speak from the heart moments.
He even had like a doctor moment near the top of this episode
Yeah.
where he is like, I got this plan. I don't know what's gonna work. It might not, but we're gonna do it anyway. Like it was like, oh, he's starting to feel like the doctor.
He feels
oh,
very
no.
doctor-like. Yeah.
He started to sound like the doctor for a moment. He was talking to Yaz like he's like, you're great. You're gonna do great things. And if he had taken Coco, I don't remember that character's name, but we called him Coco last
it's
week.
Ko Sharmas.
Coco.
Coco.
If he had taken Coco's place, I think that would have been an amazing finale.
Yeah.
For Graham.
I also think that, and what if he did it and then he regenerated right afterwards, and then it turns out he's another missing part of the doctor's life,
Which would have been very
Which would make. Oh no, wait.
and he
'cause
turns
Ryan's
into
not-
Ruth. He turns into Ruth. Anyways, But
why did this not happen now?
I know. But instead, with the Coco moment, with the fact that this is why it was also so weird. He had that long speech by Graham, which made it seem like this character's about to die, so we're having one last nice moment with him. That doesn't happen. Instead, Coco comes out of the blue, and he quickly says like, oh no, this is why it's okay for my character to martyr himself. I have this past. I actually sent the thing back in time. I've never mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it now because I'm about to use this, and just so you know, this all works out. And then it blows up everything. And it feels so forced, which is so weird in such a long episode.
Well, and my problem too was at that ending when the doctor is, might hit the button, might not hit the button. When Ko comes out of nowhere and says, "Hey, give it to me," and they have that brief moment of they're just like kind of looking at each other.
Yeah.
I was like, what's everybody else doing? Why weren't they attacking? Like, what? Why? Why are they just letting them have this exchange? Like, it felt like
Fair point.
a pause when,
Yeah.
no, if you're pausing
We're
like
gonna
this, there were like 10 of those Cybermen there. They would have been dead.
There's a lot of moments in this episode where it just felt like it could have taken a little bit more time in places and less time in others. Like I thought Ashad had been an amazing villain, and we literally lose him in like a blink.
Yeah.
Like there was no build up to it. It was just like, which like can be good. It can work. I think that it just that moment, it was a little sudden for me, and it didn't have the weight that I want from like a villain who we've spent now 3 episodes with deserves like a send off, or at least like if you're gonna do it that anticlimactically, that should be a much bigger turn or twist that it happened.
They also did like I think on paper there's a lot of good moments on this episode, especially like I like how the Master, he introduced Ashard introduced the thing that would wipe out
Death
all
particle.
biological life.
Yeah, death particle.
And then we also find out like that's what he was doing to the Cybermen in the last episode. He was taking out all the biological components. We found out, that's why he wasn't because remember last episode we were talking about like, why isn't he just assimilating all these people? Why isn't he just like upgrading them? That's because he doesn't want biological components anymore. So we got to hear all about that, and also
I did love the Master being like, "It's robots. You're making robots.
You're just making
It's
robots.
So boring. Why are you making robots?"
But I also like how the Master did this and also left it not as a convenient plot device, but so the Doctor could get him and get that like death particle and be the one to kind of do that. All that like chess moves, that was good on paper, but it just took so long to get there, and it didn't earn the moments, so it was a little tough.
Yeah.
But
That.
Now let's talk about the end of this episode, because like we solved everything. The Doctor sent a house TARDIS into Yorkshire. That's just like chilling there. That's always like a weird thing.
Well, and a couple people in the chat were comparing the house to Ruth too. The house TARDIS. Let me find the comment. But yeah, they were saying that it was similar to her.
Well, but Ruth also had a police box.
She did, yeah.
Which is why we're trying to figure out when Ruth falls even more so, because it's not just a Doctor in a TARDIS, it's the TARDIS. Like that is the same TARDIS. It's a more modern looking blue box than so it's not like the same era as Hartnell's.
Right.
It's one of the more modern designs.
It really reminded me of it looked like the house from what's that James Corrigan episode from way back when? The like neighbor episode. It's one of my favorite episodes of
the subletter. No, that wasn't it.
Matt Smith, right?
Yeah,
Where
it was Matt Smith.
I love that episode, and the house looked just like that, and it was kind of a TARDIS-y thing, if I remember right.
It was it was an attempt at a TARDIS that was like that was in the upstairs floor was all of this spaceship that they were trying to find a pilot.
And we also got another TARDIS on another planet. I think it's another planet, or the
future Earth.
It's where they were fighting the Cybermen, hidden as a tree, which I really like that it's a tree. Yeah. I did want to see how she got in and out of it though, just like squeezed through a knothole. But that was kind of cool.
Can you imagine stumbling into that like the 100-acre wood?
Yeah.
I found the comment, by the way, about Ruth, not to bring us back, but just want to mention this really fast. Little Miss Morpho said, we also have a TARDIS that is a house somewhere with a retro console inside like the one Ruth Doctor uses. That's the comment they were making comparing it. Yeah.
That is a good point, because Ruth's TARDIS does have a much more...
It has that retro console.
OG design inside.
Yeah.
Interesting point. But we got to talk about like the end where the Doctor's like, okay, well, I'm home, TARDIS. Like, don't worry, don't be jealous. I used another one just for a moment. And then the Jadoon teleport into
the TARDIS,
which I got questions on that, one. But two, then they just take the Doctor and put her into space prison for all of lives.
Yeah.
So
that's where she's going to be from now on. There's no way she's escaping.
It's sort of Rick and Morty season 2 finale.
That's true.
It's like how I thought of it.
Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing, but like, so now we have the Doctor in prison, and she got to break out.
I was also talking to my buddy Frank Moran, who I host Legends of Tomorrow with on Tuesday, but he was talking about, he was asking how this episode was, and asked, so did they address what's happening with Jack, with Captain Jack? I'm like, no, not at all. They did a lot.
Well, there you go. So Jack can come in and break the Doctor
out. But there's still whatever's happening in that ship that he has, which isn't a TARDIS, but is a different type of ship, and like what's happening there. So he's gonna come back at some point, I assume, probably in the holiday special, I hope.
Yeah, that would be a great place for it. And so our holiday special this year or next year, depending on your perspective, will be the revolution of the Daleks. So we're bringing the Daleks back again, which is funny. Like, after all of the stuff that Chibnall was like, I don't want to do any old stuff. I want to do all new monsters. And now he's like, give me all the old stuff. Like, this is our second time with the Daleks with this Doctor. And we spent a bunch of time with Cybermen and the Master this season. I don't hate it. I'm just saying it's an interesting shift.
Yeah.
Let's do some quick predictions before we sign out for this season of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
There's the bug. What are you guys thinking? What is the revolution of the Daleks gonna be?
I feel, well, okay, obviously, I mean, we've seen some of the previews, so obviously we know the Doctor is going to escape the jail, but what I'm thinking is
Were
that...
there previews? I think that what was shown afterwards was like old stuff.
Oh, okay, well, never mind. Scratch that.
I don't think they've actually started filming, or if they have, they just did.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, okay, well, then I'm just going to predict that she gets out, but I don't think it's Jack that gets her out. I think there's going to be another way without him. I don't even know. I just have this bad feeling he's not going to be in the holiday special at all. And it might be more about... Is it
okay if I flip this table?
And it might be more about finally getting the closure with the companions. And I also get a feeling that they are not going to be back for Series 13.
Got it. Dave, what are you thinking?
Saul Perez in the chat did bring up the good point that Jack said he would come back when she needed him.
Oh.
So that seems like if he's not going to come back in the holiday special, which would be a great time to come back, maybe he's going to come back later whenever they decide she needs him. Yeah, but I'm also wondering if maybe she's going to use the Daleks to break out of prison or something, Like maybe the prison has some Daleks. Maybe the revolution is a prison revolution. It's a prison riot caused by Daleks, led by her.
Can we get Dalek Sec back too? Can we just do that?
Why not?
Yeah, I think I stand by my prediction from earlier. I think Jack is coming in hot to break her out of prison, and that's gonna be a lot. I love that prediction that there's Daleks there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a flip where the Daleks are on her side would be fun and interesting.
Also remember that there is now a TARDIS. Is a TARDIS on Earth. So if the companions, maybe they can use that TARDIS to break her out.
How to
but
fly
I don't know how they would figure that out.
Be
so
interesting.
Maybe Jack would.
And there's a spare one. There's some spare TARDISes
lying around
out there on planets now.
Right.
Who knows what'll happen? But as we sign out, thank you guys so much for joining us this season on the AfterBuzz TV Doctor Who After Show. Have a great 2020, because this show ain't coming back this year. But until we see you again in another life or a timeline, or maybe just like in a memory that you've realized you forgot. Right. I've been Zach Wilson and will continue to be Zach Wilson. I think. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @ThatZachWilson. And be sure to follow my other podcast, Ships in the Night, where we take crazy characters from different universes and we write some fanfic live on the air.
It's very fun.
It's some crazy writer's room nonsense. We just did Conan the Barbarian and Samantha from Sex and the City. That's the kind of stuff we get into. Ships in the Night. Oh, and Marvel
Makes
Movie
sense.
News. Rachel.
You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman, or on my author Instagram account at Rachel Radner Author. If you're a fan of Outlander, that panel's coming up next. I am on it. I am also on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Retro Anatomy of a Movie, Restless Rap, and the Stumptown, and you'll be able to catch me on the Picard After Show at the end of the month for the finale.
Dave.
Hey, you can find me at MrDaveChild on the Twitters and the Instagram, and DaveChild.com. You can find me also on the Legends of Tomorrow AfterBuzz show, where I still talk about time travel and goofy people in spaceships. Also, look up Liquid Feet if you want to see me dance with a bunch of people. It's my dance troupe. It's my comedy dance troupe. Check it out.
All right, guys. This has been the Doctor Who After Show. Thanks for geeking out with us.
Bye-bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.